Welcome to the Stronger Everyday podcast. I am joined by Corey Hughes, and we're going to be talking today about, do I need to do nutrition? Do I need to do nutrition training? Do I need a nutrition coach? Is nutrition something that I need to focus on to get my goals? It's a quick reminder. My name's Isaac Feisberg. I'm the founder of Sasquatch Strength and Nutrition. We've been helping executives and tech workers gain muscle and lose fat through our strength training and nutrition programs for over 10 years. We have 4 locations, have helped tens of thousands of people. I myself am a certified nutrition coach. I am a National Academy of Sports Medicine personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist. I've been doing this for over a decade, training trainers, training people. But more importantly, I have with me today Corey. Corey is a national board certified health and wellness coach. He is a precision nutrition level 2 master health coach. He's got a bachelor's degree in nutritional science. He's a USAW level 1 weightlifting coach, an 8th youth fitness instructor, an ASM certified personal trainer, lots of other stuff. Thanks for being here today with me, Corey. So to get started, you probably get this a lot. Do you think people should have a nutrition coach?
I mean, I'm biased because I'm a nutrition coach. I would obviously say yes for a number of reasons. But I think, yeah, nutrition's a big component of anything that you're trying to do in the gym.
Okay. So we got a lot of people that first thing that they want to do is work on body composition. And, we all know the adage. I guess, no, you and I know the adage. I don't know that everybody else knows the adage, but it's supposed to be 20% training, 80% nutrition. I feel like a lot of our people have that backwards. So can you give me like your brief, short little like why is that 80% nutrition, 20% training when it comes to body comp changes?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think most people think that just working out is enough to get the body what they want. But without the proper nutrition, training can sometimes have that opposite effect. An example of that would be like lifting weights without complementing it with enough fuel, aka just enough calories. Make sure you're getting adequate protein. You see people lose muscle all the time, and it's super frustrating. Same thing with people doing a bunch of cardio. If you're not fueling those workouts accordingly, we're going to see a lot more muscle mass breakdown. We're going to see a lot of fatigue, and it's just kind of working against you.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So what ends up happening if people start lifting weights? What are the pitfalls that they usually fall into? Like what are they not doing with their nutrition that they need to be doing?
Hmm. I think there's a few different avatars of people. I think some people just way under eat. They're just not getting enough. They've just heard eat less, eat less, eat less. And maybe their goals are to actually lose a little bit of weight or more specifically body fat. And if we're losing muscle mass, that's directly impacting our metabolism and how well our body's processing those foods. I think on the other end too, if we're overeating, that also doesn't align with our goals. I'd say most people, I'd say at least 80+% of the people that I've worked with are trying to lose some body fat or visceral fat. And at the end of the day, calories do matter. I think that is a little bit of an oversimplification. I think a lot of people just assume weight loss or muscle gain is just about eating less or eating more. But like I said, nutrition impacts your metabolism. It goes into your hormonal balance. How much muscle can you retain? What's your recovery looking like? What's your energy levels throughout the day? So it's not just counting the macros. I think there's a lot more nuance to that rather than just blindly counting calories.
Totally. Yeah, and it's those details that make all the difference between a program that's going to work for somebody and something that doesn't. I think a lot of the people that are going to listen to this are probably beginners and need a little more insight. So when you're talking about metabolism and you're saying it impacts metabolism, talk to me a little bit about what you mean exactly.
Yeah.
How does it impact metabolism? What is metabolism? Like, why does it matter? I feel like that word's thrown around a lot and nobody actually talks about what it
Oh,
really
you're
is.
right. Yeah, it's definitely can become a little bit of a buzzword. But I mean, the essence of it is how we're metabolizing or breaking down nutrients. It's how is our body using them, genetics, lifestyle, hormones, all that plays a huge role into it. But just for simplicity purposes, I think one area that a lot of people overlook is muscle mass. I hear people say all the time, like, "Hey, I don't want to gain any muscle. I just want to lose fat." We're like, okay, great, that's totally fine. Let's maybe start there. But what they don't realize is that if muscle is very calorically expensive, it requires a lot of energy to maintain that muscle. And one thing we see a lot of people who've done a lot of yo-yo dieting, where let's say they've lost 20 pounds in the past, maybe 5 to 10 of that was muscle mass. But if we're not measuring that, we'd be pretty excited. Like, cool, we lost 20 pounds. But if we
Right.
just lost 5 to 10 pounds of muscle, now you have less energy requirements. It all
Right.
comes down to energy balance. So if, we initially, our body needed about 1,500 calories. Now we've lost a bunch of muscle. Now we're probably burning only about 1,100, maybe 1,200 calories a day, meaning it's going to be that much harder to keep all of that weight off. So yes, we could absolutely get some quick results, but at what cost, right? I'm
Right.
sure most people would want to be able to maintain and keep those results off long term.
For sure. So when we're talking about metabolism, we're talking about the number of calories that your body's using every day, right? And there's that number that we look at our in-body scans all the time. It says BMR, right? Basal metabolic rate. So, what Corey's talking about that I think is super important for everybody to understand is when we have more muscle, right? If I have 1 more pound of muscle on my bicep, right? That means that pound of muscle is living, breathing tissue. It needs calories every day to function, right? So if I add muscle to my body, I am now utilizing more calories every day. And theoretically, if we're talking thermodynamics here, calories in, calories out, which is the simplified version, but still, we're going to burn more calories every day by having that muscle. So that's generally why we always talk about if we're bringing somebody in, we're kind of a muscle first, fat loss second, or fat loss as a consequence kind of place. Just because that's yeah, like you said, it's metabolic currency. It means now from this point forward, you burn more calories every day doing whatever you do because you built that muscle. It's like the compound interest of training.
Yeah. And it just breaks the cycle of that yo-yo dieting. It just makes it sustainable.
100%. 100%. So on the eating too much side, like what starts to happen to your body if you're eating too much when you're going into this journey, right? Let's say generally the people that are eating too much are probably trying to lose weight. What walk me through what that looks like in layman's terms.
Yeah, sure. I think a big misconception is that we all think fat is bad, just inherently. We hear the term fat, we think it's bad. Um, One way I like to think of the body is it's just reserves. Our body's storing
Right.
nutrients that we have the ability to access from later, anytime that maybe we might be under eating a little bit, or maybe we have to go long periods of time with or without food. Our body has some stores to take from. Um, I think that if people can kind of view that as saying, "Hey, fat isn't a bad thing." There's a couple different types of body fat. Going back to the in-body scan that you were mentioning, there's two types that it measures for. One is the outer layers of body fat. We call those subcutaneous layers if you want to get nerdy about it. And then we have some deeper layers of fat that we call visceral fat. Um, I
Scary
think a lot of
stuff.
people, we focus too much on those outer layers of body fat, which, if I'm being honest, I would say I would call it like a healthy form of fat, right? That's going to be the first place that your body stores. Let's say we have eat too many calories one day, our body's going to store it for the days or maybe weeks that we don't have it, so it does have a reserve. But everybody's capacity for subcutaneous fat is going to be a little bit different. So let's say we overeat regularly. Our body just keeps storing those extra calories. At a certain point, you're going to hit your capacity, and everybody's capacity is different. Then you're going to see some spillover of that fat, and because those calories still have to go somewhere, that's when we're going to see the visceral fat numbers, those much deeper layers of fat that's much denser, sits around your organs. We're going to see those numbers start to build up. Um, so it does look a little different for everybody. You might look at somebody and be like, oh, they're relatively thin. But if you go put them on the in-body scan, yeah, maybe their subcutaneous layers of fat are relatively low just because they don't have a big storage capacity for them. But they have a really high visceral fat, which has a lot of downstream consequences, lots of
Totally.
correlations, a lot of metabolic conditions like high cholesterol, diabetes, Those are big downstream effects that we see people with high visceral fat. Um, the calories equation, I think, does get a little oversimplified, though. I think there's a lot of, behavioral and emotional connections to a lot of it, though, that we also have to dig into a lot with some of the nutrition coaching.
For sure. And again, like that's why we focus on like health coaching, not just nutrition coaching, right? It's a lot of habit building. It's a lot of like breaking down some behaviors or some triggers that like might result in you over consuming or under consuming and or all these different things. But before we get into all that stuff, so that's generally what happens. That's what's going on to somebody that's overeating. When they come into our system, what's your approach to working with that person on rectifying that problem and let's call it right siding that caloric intake or you know what's your
Yeah.
process?
I think it's a classic case of it depends. And I don't
Okay.
think that's the answer everybody wants to hear. Everybody just wants the easy, hey, just go do this. But it would have to have a much longer conversation. I would want to know, hey, what is it you're trying to do? How quickly are you trying to do this? Kind of get an idea of what some of those skill gaps are. Because at the end of the day, this is a skill. We're learning how to listen to our body, how to fuel it, and not be too restrictive. I think that's a big one that a lot of people mistake. So one, I want to
that's
figure out
that
what the person's doing.
that's such a big one. Sorry to interrupt. I think people miss this all the time. I'm sure everybody's hearing about GLP-1 and Ozempic and all these different things that they can do. And again, as intervention tools, there's nothing wrong with them, right? I'm sure at some point I know we're working with some people that are on these drugs and getting great results. But the key word there is skill. You have to learn the skill. If you pretend that you're going to drink the drink that's going to make you lose 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 pounds, and then miraculously you're not going to put that back if you go back to the same skill set, the same pattern that you were in before, you're kind of living in la la land, right? You can go on Ozempic for 6 months or 12 months or 3 years and get to the perfect body composition and like get rid of your visceral fat. I mean, there's other problems with that we can talk about later, but
Yeah.
um, at the end of the day, you're going to go right back to where you started if you didn't develop that skill set. Sorry,
Absolutely. No,
back
you're
back
you're
to what you were
totally
saying.
right. I think that's it's a big shift in where a lot of the research is heading right now. Is it's not most people know what to do. It's how to do it. I think it's a big component of all of it. But to answer the question though, it does look a little different for everyone. So
Yeah.
let's say I've already walked through with the person of what they want to do, what the timeline is, what their overall capacity is. We start with a baseline or a foundation. We put together like a meal plan, do a little testing, retesting. So we make sure that they're hitting just kind of the basic food intake of, hey, are they getting, just the right amount of food and calories, proteins, fiber, all of that coming in. But then we see how their body's responding. We do a
Yeah.
little testing, retesting. If we always want to accelerate the results, we can always kind of turn on that dial a little bit. But it's going to take a lot of feedback from the person of how they're feeling. A lot of the qualitative metrics like mood, energy, sleep, stress, digestion, recovery time, performance. That's a lot of the information that I would need to be able to make those tweaks, to be able to actually give individual feedback to the person rather than just going off what the data and the research says, because that stuff is applicable for sure. That's where the science meets the art. And just to give you kind of one example of what I mean by that is we can't just keep shoving a round object into a square hole just because we know that's what we're supposed to do. We know based on all the data and the research, you're going to perform better in a fueled state. There's not really much argument in that, meaning if you have a little bit of fuel in you, some food before you go work out, you're going to perform better. That being said, I can't tell you how many dozens or maybe even hundreds of clients I've worked with that have told me, hey, if I eat anything before I go into the gym for 2, 3 hours beforehand,
That's me.
they're going to throw up. In which case, like, hey,
Yeah.
let's not force something just because we know that's what we're supposed to do. We got to find other ways to still get the same result, but just to be a little bit more strategic of some ways that fits your lifestyle and your preferences.
100%. Yeah. I love that. And that's the big piece of this is if we're working on those skills and filling those knowledge gaps, right, and helping the person understand what it is they need to work on so that they can carry this with them forever. It's not just a pill. It's not just here's your medication. And to me, it kind of parallels the big issue with Western medicine as a whole is we're treating the symptom, right? The symptom is you're overweight in this particular example, right? You have excess amounts of fat. Great, here's a pill to get rid of the excess amount of fat. The second you stop taking the pill, you go right back. It doesn't address the key question, which is why did we develop this excessive amount of visceral and subcutaneous fat? And that's what you try to do is help somebody understand how did we get here, what happened, right?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that you don't end up in the same position again in a year or 2 years or three or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's going upstream.
Yep.
I think a lot of it is really deep-rooted behaviors. As much as it might be a buzzword, but past traumas, emotional triggers, it's huge. Working with a nutrition coach, that's a lot of what we do. And this might be just kind of the general like 30,000-foot description of what we do, but it's about identifying food triggers. Is it stress, boredom, social pressure, exhaustion? Trying to rewrite a lot of those emotional eating patterns. Instead of using food for comfort, having it as like a stress relief, we find some alternatives, but also teaching that mindfulness. That's huge. How do we mindfully eat? How do we become
Totally.
self-aware? That's really the secret sauce of being able to get the results that you want, but then also to maintain those results for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I mean that kind of adds all the value to the iterative process that you go through with people. I know when you and I were working on this maybe a year back, we realized that I love to eat in front of the TV, right? Like I work from 6 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. 8:30 comes around. I like to sit down in front of the TV with my wife, watch a show for an hour or something, and that's when the calories just start piling on. And our first approach was, well, let's not eat in front of the TV. And then I felt like I was missing out on time with her, time with my kids. It was just like that was part of our bonding ritual that we just always had.
Yeah.
So then we came up with a different version, which was, well, go to the kitchen and pick your plate of all the stuff that you're going to eat that night, right? So I got to put, I'm going to have two chicken patties. I'm going to have four pieces of bread. I'm going to have two little chocolates. I'm going to have a protein shake. And I'm going to have, this is a very eclectic mix of stuff, but you get my point. And then I take that big plate over to the TV and I know, hey, this is what I get to eat. And when this plate is done, that is my trigger to know that I am done eating and I can be a little bit more mindful and still give myself that treat that is
Yeah.
eating with my wife and kids in front of the TV.
Got to be flexible. You gotta
Yeah,
you gotta be able to be a human, but also you can still get the same results that you're looking for while at least somewhat enjoying yourself. It doesn't have to be miserable.
for sure. So that's one side of the fence is people that come in here and they're probably overeating. So tell me briefly about the other side of the fence. So the people that are coming in that are under eating, right? Or I think you and I have talked about it's like doing excessive amounts of cardio, and then the energy balances of like energy output versus energy coming in is just radically off.
Yeah. I can give you a very recent example. An hour ago, I was on a call with somebody, one of our members, and she was telling me that how she's been coming into the gym for about 6 months now. I believe she's in her like mid 60s or so. Some big life changes. She recently retired. She sees the kind of the pitfalls of a lot of her family members, so she's trying to get ahead of the ball there. And she thinks doing more is better. Where she's doing, I think she was saying she did at least 4 Sasquatch workouts a week. And then she would go running every single day. She used to be doing marathons way back in the day, and then she stopped.
Oh,
And then she also recently started picking up some kickboxing classes. So she's doing that 3 days a week. And she was very confused as to why her midsection fat was just being really stubborn. She's like, "Hey, I'm adding on these more workouts. I'm running more. I'm burning more calories." And then we took a look at her in-body scan, and she hadn't taken one in a number of months. We saw that she lost quite a bit of muscle, meaning that she's doing all these extra workouts. She's just constantly burning and burning and burning more energy, and she's not giving the fuel that she needs. And, if we take that one step further, given her age and likely her hormonal profiles, I'm not going to say going and doing a 2 hour run is the worst thing that she could possibly doing, but there's a lot of cumulative stress there, right? She's just putting a ton of stress on her body. She's not giving her body enough time to recover. Not only is she not only getting enough fuel for it, but she's also under recovering. So she's just constantly breaking it down. If we're not giving it the fuel to be able to at least give the nutrients for our body to actually be able to build that muscle and prioritize the lean muscle tissue growth and burning the body fat, which is kind of the goal, our body's going to get the nutrients from somewhere. Those calories don't just magically appear. It's going to take it. And our bodies do a very, very good job. And if we want to go for that like toned look where we see a little muscle definition, that requires having some muscle underneath it and complementing the workout. So it's not always just about getting the right number of calories in throughout the day. I think that is the best place to start. One, just
Yeah.
make sure you're getting enough in. The next step is, when are we having that? Are we having the right amount of food throughout the day consistently? Our body's going to do best with regular intervals of food. And that's very contrary to the popular dieting that we've all grown up with, where it's like less, less,
Intermittent
less, less,
fasting.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
is going to do better with more regular inflows of nutrients. And just one example of that would be, again, on paper, this is great. If our body had a magic wand, we would be getting somewhere between 10 to 15 grams of protein like every 3 hours, because our body's constantly in a state of breaking down muscle tissue and repairing it in like a 3 to 5 hour cycle. That's not the reality for everyone. We're not going to wake up in
For
the middle
sure.
of the night, chug a protein shake, but we can try to get as close to it as we can by being strategic about, what is it we're eating, what types of food, what does our day look like? And that's what we actually get to do with a lot of the nutrition coaching, rather than me just saying, hey, go get 100 grams of protein. Good luck. I'll never see you again. It is a matter of, hey, we check in weekly. Sometimes I check in with some of our clients daily, saying like, hey, you're only at 80 grams of protein. Hey, let's maybe space this out. Let's maybe add a few more things in there. So it's an iterative process, and it just requires constant feedback. And if I'm being honest, though, I think that the main thing that most people need a little help with is the accountability. Just having someone in their corner, because there's a
100%.
lot of information out there, which is a good thing, but that information can be a little overwhelming for a lot of
Yeah.
people. So just being able to navigate it.
For sure. And, we're going to do more of these podcasts, and we do our nutrition seminars every month, and we have all this information going out. But the reality is, the information is only worth as much as you're willing to do with it or you're capable of doing with it. We talk about this all the time, right? Really well meaning people give nutrition advice to other people all the time. The problem is, if they're not able to hold that person accountable, if they're not able to help them through the minutia of implementing the information, it's kind of worthless, right? It's like me giving you a piece of software for your Mac that only runs on Windows. Like, that might be a really outdated example. I don't know that still makes sense. But like, if you're not able to run it, what's the point? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
a lot of people come to the nutrition seminars or might come to the podcast looking for like that one key insight that's going to change everything for them. Oh, I was missing a cup of blueberries every day. Like, that's what it was. If I just had the cup of blueberries, I would have a six pack and I would not have diabetes. And that's just not the reality, right? You, the thing that the people are doing that you want the results that they have, right? If you look at the Instagram people that are like, I mean, there's a lot of fake stuff out there, but if you're looking at athletes, or if you're looking at actors, or if you're looking at some people like you, really, right? We all have nutrition coaches. We all have strength training coaches. We have these resources to help us be able to stay at the top of our game and look the way we want to look and feel the way we want to feel and perform the way we want to perform, right? We all have different reasons for doing it. My wife might like to look a certain way, and that's like her big motivator. My big motivator is performance. Like, I need to be sharp. I'm running a company. I got a lot of stuff going on. I got to keep up with two kids. I got to keep up with my wife. All that stuff makes me want to be able to work on this stuff to be properly fueled to deal with all of that. Um, and it's funny how many times I hear comments of people saying like, "Oh, it must be nice to just be able to like, stay lean all the time," or it must be nice to just like know what to eat all the time, or be near a gym all the time. And they don't realize the work that goes into it, right? The work and the help from other people.
Yeah. But I think people also think that it is this thing where you have to spend a constant amount of time, like you're just always thinking about it. And I think that's a big misconception too, where it's like, hey, any skill you're learning, you're going to spend the most time thinking about it until it becomes routine. And I think that's one of the things that our nutrition
100%.
coaches help too, is just it saves time. Yes, you can have the same access to the same information, but what's the likelihood of you being able to stick with it, long term, and being able to have that feedback? Where I think made a really good example a while back, where you're like, hey, like the snatch is a really technical movement. If you came to me and you're like, hey, how do you snatch? It would be like, hey, you take barbell from the ground over the head. And if I never talk to you again, you're probably never going to learn how to do the snatch, or at least not very well. Everybody
Right?
needs a little extra guidance to give them some feedback, like, hey, put your arms here, lean your body here. It's the exact same thing of just being able to cut through the noise.
For sure. Well, thanks, Corey. I think we covered a lot of stuff. Unfortunately for you guys, the answer is it's complicated. It depends. And we'd love to help you out. If you're curious about any of this stuff, you can listen to some of the other episodes. You can come to some of the nutrition seminars that we host. We're going to be posting those on YouTube and on Spotify as well. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, just reach out. SasquatchStrength.com.